And our first presenter is Sreenandana. She is presenting on weaving features, women's agency in India's solar silk revolution. So join our hands in welcoming Sreenandana.
Warm good morning to one and all. Thank you so much for being here. I am Sreenandana. I am currently an undergraduate student at Ashoka University. And my practice case titled Weaving Futures, Women's Agency in India's Solar Silk Revolution explores how Resham Sutra Private Limited, or RSPL in short, a Delhi-based social enterprise, combines sustainable solar technology and relational trust to convert invisible labor of rural women into dignified livelihoods across agriculture societies. I will start with my motivation behind choosing the topic. And like you can see on the slides, these are images of something called as tire weaving, which is an exploitative practice practiced in sericulture societies of northern rural villages, wherein women rear silk on their bare thighs. This leads to physical cuts, as well as, in general, it's a very exploitative practice. I have read about this a while ago, and this is also at the same time when I had the honor of working with Dr. Priyaraju Nayak, who is here with us today. And under her guidance, I was able to meet with a social enterprise called Resham Sutra Private Limited, or RSPL. And what stood out about RSPL's work was that they were very genuine and they had tangible community impacts on the women that they were working for and that they were working with. RSPL's work also felt extremely grounded, very respectful as well as sensitive. They did not intervene and do the work like saviors, but rather had a very collaborative and open mindset. This led me to be curious about how we can amalgamate and combine keywords and concepts like technology, care, and gender, and how they intersect meaningfully through RSPL's work, which has led me to write this practice. The methodologies that I have used are primary materials. For primary materials, I have used interviews. I've mainly interviewed Upasana Jain, who I'm also extremely grateful for, who is the Chief of Staff at RSPL. She has given us a lot of insights which has helped us develop this paper further. I've also used secondary data like impact reports and metrics from internal RSPL documents, some of which are not published yet. And of course, I've also used theoretical framing like feminist economic literature like that of Kabir, Elson, as well as Fowler. This will take us a little bit more about what RSPL does and what their work is. Like I mentioned before, RSPL is a Delhi-based social enterprise. It was founded by an engineer turned entrepreneur named Kunal Bhai. Currently, RSPL has around 22,000 machines implemented and installed over various rural villages across India. 400 and more villages to be precise. They have impacted over 16,000 women as well as 50,000 more indirect individuals. Their main mission still stands to be promoting sustainable livelihoods for rural women via solar sustainable green technology. So their main agenda is to make affordable as well as subsidized machines like the ones that you can see here, namely Bunyad, Unnati, and many more, across states like Assam, Odisha, and Jharkhand, where women are achieving self-reliance. There is a reduced pattern in their drudgery, and they re-entering the markets as entrepreneurs rather than the workers that they once used to be, earning very meager sums like $1.75 a day. So over here, as you can see, there are images of what has happened to these women's lives once RSPL has entered into the scene and intervened. These women who used to once sit and weave silk on their bare thighs now have very convenient, very affordable reeling machines like the ones that you can see here. And this has obviously had a lot of impact on their lives, which is what we're going on to next. Like I mentioned before, technology is one very important pivotal element of RSPL's work. Solar power, they're 90% energy efficient, and they've boosted productivity threefold. But it's not only the machines that they work with and for. RSPL also ensures that they're creating ecosystems amongst these women. So their rural experience centers or their RECs become cocoon banks wherein women can use and access these cocoons throughout the year despite seasonal irregularities. They work with the Central Silk Board and they ensure that these women who are buying these machines are trained well in advance and know how to operate, maintain and repair these machines and therefore become the market owners and business women. And finally, very recently they've also entered the digital sphere, wherein with the help of the Gates Foundation, they've also opened up a new app called the Blom Sutra, wherein there is a multilingual workspace for these women to directly sell to their consumers, to their customers from the comforts of their own home. So this, of course, has a lot of impact that has been measured extensively by Nation Sutra as well as other organizations, which I explored in my practice days. As you can see, the quantitative impacts of these are that 94.5% of these women have reported increased income. But more than that, 67% of these women have reported an improved ability to handle emergencies, and their productivity has increased from over 70 grams of silk a day to 200 grams a day. But more than these tangible numbers, what is even more striking is how RSPL has been able to change the lives of these women on a larger scale. Namely, there, of course, in terms of health indications, there is reduced physical strain and health risks amongst these women. There is now greater financial autonomy as well as household decision-making skills amongst these women. And of course, local cooperatives and RECs have emerged amongst women. So now they have not only a voice amongst their micro spaces like their houses, but even their communities, they're visible and they're not invisibilized like they once used to be. Some of the insights that I gained while practicing and exploring this practice case was that I understood that RSPL has made sure from a very early stage, now this is their 10th year of working, that their technology has been adapted and molded in such a way for these people and not the other way around, like a lot of social enterprises today. So therefore, they have an extreme focus on organic change rather than disruptive change. And this is something that Upasana, while I was speaking to her, also mentioned very explicitly. The fact that RSPL doesn't really, they don't believe in the fact that change needs to be disruptive, but rather something very organic and gradual, so that these women who they work with and for will also be enabled by that. This, of course, leads to the question of how much hand-holding and how much care is too much, in such a way that how long does RSPL have to care and handhold these women, and when is the line to be blurred between independence as well as handholding? And that is a tension that I also explore in my practice case. And lastly, the learnings that I received have been extended and expanded from my insights, wherein I understood that empowerment as a concept, as we know, is very relational and rather not mechanical. So access to machines is, of course, something that RSPL does, but what makes them truly different, what makes them extremely identifiable is the fact that they pair it up with trust, training and collective structures. Income translates to agency, wherein increase in earnings is, of course, a tangible metric, but more so than that, it translates into decision making, investments in children's education. And one notable example that Upasana was mentioning is how one of the women who were purchasing RSPL machines now has tiled their bathroom so that their daughter's marriage prospects would increase. So these small little changes are all symbolic of bigger increases in confidence, and that is something that we cannot ignore. And lastly, there is also there is one last tension, which is about how when RSPL grows further as a model and scales up, it needs to ensure that they still remain their true identity of care and authenticity cannot be compensated for their scaling, and that is also something that I mentioned. And with that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you so much.
That was concluded well within time. We now have 5 minutes. If the audience or the chair has any questions.
I have a question. How do they afford